Welcome to Legacy Sips and Tips podcast with your geeky host, Lindsay Wheeler, where we talk about everything from death, preparing for your future through estate planning, life, the occasional breakup, entrepreneurship, general nerdery, and of course travel, snowboard, and always wine. Welcome to Legacy Sips and Tips with your host, Lindsay, and today we're going to talk about what happens if you are appointed as a successor trustee. Let's get into that. So say your loved ones or your parents, for example, have appointed you as their successor trustee. What does that mean? Or conversely, if you have your estate plan in place and you have placed somebody as a successor trustee, what does that mean? What are they doing? So let's start from the beginning. You've got your trust in place. You have now put you as a trustor creating this trust, the trustee, you usually managing this trust. When you're not able to manage it or no longer with us, that's where your successor trustee steps in. They're your new manager of your life or your assets through that estate plan. So typically that's usually maybe your children or a child or a loved one, or even you can do a financial institution if you don't like any of those options. You can have a third party independent institution take care of those things for you. What do they do though? What is done when you pass away or are no longer able to manage your affairs, and that successor trustee has to step in? So one, if you're still alive, you can appoint them or relinquish your trusteeship and appoint them now as a trustee. So they're going to step into your role as managing the estate and managing the affairs. However, typically when this becomes active or when the trustee or successor trustee's role takes place is after someone's passed away. And so with that, you are now having to deal with someone's passing away in their life and their grief of all of that, and then now having to manage this estate, if you will. As we're aware, much, much easier than having to go through probate. Hello. Well, hello, good evening. Hi, are you a successor trustee? For example, if the cat was a successor trustee, how would she manage things? Very crankily is how she would. Get out of here. Get out of here with your nonsense. The disadvantages of owning a cat who has white fur and you only wear black is that now you're covered in white fur. And then you have to have one of these handy dandy things to always take all of the white fur off. You have one in your car, you have one in your purse, you have one in the house, because all of your items are black. And your cat, who you love dearly, however, has a little bit of a cow cat and has a little bit too much white fur. And she's shedding. And so where does all that white fur go? On you. She also likes to sit like a baby on your shoulder or like a little parrot or a little monkey, because this is how cats roll. And I just can't stop it. So this is how we roll. Also very important of why we put our cats into our estate plan or your other animals, because who's going to look after this little monkey when I'm not here? Hopefully somebody who loves her white fur all over their black clothes. You smell. Go on. I need a drink now. That's cat dealings. How do you parents with children do it? Because I can't even handle the damn cats. Okay, yay wine. Back to this. So let's talk about what happens if you are a successor trustee or are being named as a successor trustee on someone's trust. Again, we're reviewing, when you create a trust, there are many different roles. The first role is the trustor who creates the trust. The initial trustee who's managing the trust or those assets, that's usually the same person. And then when that person is not able to manage their affairs or no longer with us, that's when that role, the successor trustee, steps in. With that, either if that person is alive and they have now relinquished that role, they can remove themselves and place you as a successor trustee in that role. Or typically it's that person has passed away and now you are having to step in as that successor trustee to manage their affairs, close that out of estate, transfer the assets, and take care of everything accordingly. Of course, there's always work involved in life, but in the realm of estate planning, having this trust in place or having a revocable living trust and an estate plan, having that successor trustee is so much easier than having your loved ones go through probate. Do not do that to them. Do not do that to them. Do not make them go through 13 plus months and the expense of going through probate when you could have done a little bit of room work on the forefront to give them the room and the ability to manage your affairs easily and quickly, usually within 3 to 4 months to get this wrapped up. Of course, there's always the exceptions that sometimes estates and trust will take longer to wrap up. But on average, if it's a normal basic estate, maybe there's a house, maybe there's some investments, maybe there's a bank account, maybe there's a life insurance, maybe there's some retirement funds and some vehicles, that usually can be wrapped up within a couple months. So let's go over what the role of a successor trustee is and how that happens when that person has passed away. So first thing is that hopefully you're aware you're a successor trustee. They don't necessarily have to give you their documents, and oftentimes people are encouraged not to do that because they may change their mind. Maybe they want Sue Smith as their successor trustee, and a couple years they maybe fall out of touch, or Sue Smith gets weird, or maybe Sue Smith passed away. We don't want to necessarily give those documents for them to review because as a trustor, you may change your mind on who you want to manage your things. Okay. From there, if you are appointed as a successor trustee and that person passes away, hopefully they've told you where their stuff lives, where their estate plan is, where's the binder is. If they're smart, they'll have that legacy vault. I got you on that. Full-time, $500 flat rate, lifetime access for all of those assets to be easily available for your successor trustee. And again, I know I like to push this, but it is a big thing. It is so much easier for your successor trustee to get a hold of your stuff if it's in one central hub for them to do so. Because again, they're probably sad you've passed away. Hopefully they're sad that you passed away. Hopefully they're grieving. Hopefully they love you. And then having to go through your house after you've passed away and dig through paperwork or look for a binder or what have you, and all your other financial assets is a lot for them. If you can put it in one central hub, you can upload everything. You've done that for them. They have a nice, basically electronic digital trapper keeper of all of your stuff. They'll have the password or the login that you've provided for them. Either you can give it ahead of time for an authorized signer, or you can put it in a sock drawer and say, hey, everything is on here. Here's your login. They go in, bam, everything is there. All your stuff, your accounts, your passwords, your logins, your important documents, birth certificates, marriage certificates, what have you. There's your estate plan, because you've got that done right, is all in one place. They can push generate to PDF and print it all out. Everything is there for them in one spot. They're not having to hunt around and look for things. So very important, very nice to have, low cost, lifetime access, great. It's kind of a no-brainer, frankly. From there, of course, they're going to then secure your stuff or secure the property. They're going to make sure that people aren't just not roaming in now because you've passed away and think, oh, well, Bob said I could have this. Well, who are you? And did you even know Bob? Were you just some random neighbor and you saw that somebody passed away and it's a free-for-all? No. As a successor trustee, you have an obligation to secure that estate, if you will. Changing locks usually is a primary first thing that you'll do. Making sure that big ticket items are held and are secure so they're not just going to what we call walk away. Okay. Do an asset inventory. So again, hopefully that person has done that for you, again, putting all that stuff in that legacy vault for big ticket items. Everything's available for you to know. But also it's good for you to go through and do kind of an inventory of those assets in the estate. Take a video and go through and make sure everything is kind of arranged and cataloged. And at the end of the day, I know this is harsh, but most of that's going to go into a dumpster. It is brutal, it is difficult, it is harsh, but that people's things all pretty much get thrown away unless they're like bigger, nicer items. What you think is great and that you like and that you think is nice oftentimes is not for other people, and it just literally gets put into a dumpster. You may have an estate sale, if you will. You've seen those where they'll have more of the nicer items, or you'll have people come through and they can pick and choose what they want out of the house to sell those personal items that are not specifically listed within your estate plan or that you specifically listed for people to have or that you wanted them to go to. Okay. So again, making sure that the estate is secure, doing an asset inventory as best as you can, finding those documents and making sure that you have the accessibility of those documents to then start going through and taking care of those assets for that person who is now passed. From there, depending on your state, there's communication requirements, informing beneficiaries that this person has passed away. In my state, in Nevada, we are a may state, not a shall state. You may contact these people and let them know. You don't have to. It's not a shall. You shall have to do that. We don't do that. Other states like California, it is a shall state. So always check with your jurisdiction of what your requirements are now as a successor trustee on those notice requirements. Typically, you would also put a notice within the newspaper that that person has passed away, that you're a successor trustee of an estate, and that if a creditor has a claim, that they can come forward and provide notice that they should be reimbursed for this claim, if you will. Credit cards sometimes will do that. Maybe if they had a loan outstanding or something like that, or they owed money, then that financial institution or that person would make a claim against the estate to be reimbursed or paid for that claim. Okay, so that's an important thing to do, making sure that you double check your notice requirements. With that, you of course are now stepping in the role of the manager of this estate, like a business. So say it was an ice cream shop and the manager no longer is there to take care of things, you are now managing this ice cream shop. With that becomes financial responsibilities and fiduciary requirements. That is, again, securing the property, securing that assets and those estates, and then taking care and taking note of what needs to be paid, closing out credit cards, closing estate, assets, if you will, notifying financial institutions that this person has passed away. Typically, you would have hopefully a designated beneficiary has been listed as a trust on your financial accounts if you have set this up, and now your successor can just come in, show that death certificate, open an estate account, and then those financial institutions will transfer that money into that estate account, if you will, if that estate account has not already been set up. So when you do your estate plan, you can set up that account for your successor trustees already, or typically what people do is have the designated beneficiary listed as the trust on those financial assets, if you will. So what happens when somebody passes away? That successor trustee is going to get what we call an EIN through the federal government. And it's a very easy process to do. It's online. Double check that it is free and that you are on the actual government website, because there's a lot of websites on there that'll do it for you and charge you $80, $90 when it's actually super easy, straightforward, and free through our IRS government. So just double check that it is free. If you're being charged, you're on the wrong site. So go there. You will get an estate EIN. That is the federal tax number. It's like basically the estate social security number. Okay. From there, open that estate account, and then all of those financial institutions, after you've notified them with a death certificate that this person has passed away, will then either cut a check, what have you, or if they have individuals listed as a beneficiary, they'll go ahead and transfer those assets outside of probate into that estate account. And then you are able to then from there make sure that this person's life is sum zeroed. No distribution of assets occur until that person's life is summed zeroed out. That means paying their debt, paying their resources, making sure everything is taken care of before any distribution happens to any beneficiary listed on there. So oftentimes, people might have a insolvent estate. Maybe they are really on the border. They have a second mortgage out there. They've taken personal lines. They've done, other types of credits. They have obscene credit card debt. Maybe they own their vehicles, whatever it is. Oftentimes people think, well, they had a house and they had this. Well, that's great, but they also had an obscene amount of debt that has to be paid. So that's where people kind of get stuck, where they think, well, I should be getting this big inheritance. Well, no, that person has a lot of debt that needs to be paid off first from their estate before any of that distribution happens. So oftentimes a beneficiary may only get maybe $10,000 or $5,000 or no money at all because they're upside down with their life. So double checking that, making sure everything's secure, doing that inventory, basically harnessing all the financial institutions and assets, if you will, putting notice in the paper that someone's passed away, so if a creditor needs to come forward. And then from there, once you have done that, you can, of course, take care of those bills. Usually there's, within this certain law or statute of your state, will have a time frame that creditors can come forward with, depending on the estate value. Usually that's 60 to 90 days, if you will. Then afterwards, if that's all sum zeroed out, then you can start doing that distribution to the heirs. So usually we're about, 3 months in, 4 months in, what have you. Always double check those documents, making sure that there's no amendments within that trust that have changed the original agreement, making sure that if there's a personal property memorandum, that those personal items are going to go where those are supposed to go to, that the dead person wants them to have. I always say my example is, Sue Smith, I want her to have that Thomas Kincaid painting because she just loved it every time she came over. Going through there, you have that instructions because that person has set out those instructions for you through their estate plan. You're not guessing or going through probate at that time. At that time too, you're doing that beneficiary designations, letting those institutions know. They're going to then start trickling in that money. You're going to have that estate account, like I said. And then from there, after all the debts are paid for, everything is ready to go. Maybe you've liquidated the house, maybe you've sold the house, you've dumped all the things that are not worth anything, you've had estate sales. Then from there you have basically a nice end of the day amount. Of course, keep good records when you're doing this if you're a successor trustee of what you've done, what you've bought, what you've sold, your expenses, things that have been donated, things that have been sold, what's been transferred. Just keep a nice diary of all the things that you're done, because beneficiaries can also ask for an accounting, if you will, of what you're doing. So again, you have that fiduciary responsibility to take care of this estate accordingly. And they can think if you are being not good, you're not acting in a fiduciary manner, you're maybe questionable, they can ask for an accounting through the court, and you are going to be required to do that. So make sure everything is documented and everything is being taken care of accordingly from there. Again, keep that record accounting and making sure that there's no questionality of your dealings with this. And then from there, when everything is done and good to go, now it's the fun time. Now we have that distribution. People get their checks accordingly to those wishes and that distribution section of the estate plan and the trust. And from there, then everything is closed out and Bob's your uncle, if you will. So kind of the things to do if you're a successor trustee. I know it seems overwhelming. It can be, of course, because someone's just passed away and that's a lot to do. But let me tell you again, it is a lot less to do and a lot less stressful to manage an estate through a revocable living trust than it is through a will or through nothing through the probate process. Much, much more difficult. And we, of course, can talk about that all day long if you want to. Or if you've become a successor trustee or named a successor trustee and you have questions, just let me know. We can totally discuss that as well. I have a lot of good resources and information that I can help you with and to help walk you through that process. So today's wine we're talking about is a fun one. So oftentimes clients know that, when we start talking that I like wine, which is great, and they will give me free bottles of wine, which I appreciate and will take. So this wine here is from Freemark Abbey. It is Spring Mountain District in Napa Valley. Again, we're on a Napa theme lately for some reason. It's a 2013 and it's a 50th Reserve wine. It's their Super Bowl commemorative bottle, if you will. So this is kind of a fun one. They made this in a traditional Bordeaux style, as it says here. It's from Napa Valley's Spring Mountain, which is nice. Good wine, heavy fruit, big, bold, of course, Napa wine made in the Bordeaux style. So it's actually a really nice wine, and I'm very happy that my clients gave that to me and thought of me. And of course, when you think of me and you think of death, think of me. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you found value, please like, subscribe, and share. And be sure to follow me on all the socials at Sips and Tips with Lindsay. And of course, you can always go to my website, sipsandtipswithlindsay.com, to find more information about estate planning, business, snowboard, travel, and of course, wine. As always, we have to get the legal stuff out of the way. I went to law school, so you don't have to. However, we have to read the special disclaimer that I am not a practicing attorney. I am not your attorney. I am not offering any legal advice in any content or any episode. All content is for your information and educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for seeking your own legal advice from your own attorney or other professionals such as a CPA or financial advisor. I cannot give legal advice and do not offer any legal services or legal advice, but I do offer some fun and educational content for you to enjoy.